Whoa, who knew? We're live, 2 o'clock Eastern, Wednesday, June the 19th, hump day, but most importantly, half price Wednesday at WagerTalk.com. Today and tonight only, because when the clock strikes midnight, Bryan Power turns back to a pumpkin, Mark Zinno becomes more of a superhero, and every price goes back to 100% normal at WagerTalk.com. I am Steve Merrill, filled in for Dan Alexander. He is on assignment, joined by Mark Zinno, as you see, and Bryan Power. We're going to break down pretty much all the baseball games that everybody wants to talk about here on the show, because we are doing this live. So if you're with us in the chat on either YouTube Shorts, or Summer Day Drinking on Instagram, chime away. Let us know any games you want to talk about, and we will let you know our best opinions on them as we can. And also any player props, pitcher props, Nerfy, Yorfies, anything else you want to talk about. All right, Mark, let's start it off. We have 5 daytime games. We also have 10 nighttime games. So it is a loaded card here on Wednesday, June the 19th. And we're going to start off with you, my friend. Let's go Toronto game. Blue Jays. We'll go north of the border. We don't have any Canadians on here, but we're going to talk Red Sox, Blue Jays. And the Red Sox are starting to play better baseball. Does Toronto keep up here on Wednesday?
Well, look, this is one of these plays where I hate saying this, but I'm just kind of going with a little bit more gut here than anything else. And situationally, Toronto trying to avoid a sweep here. And by the way, when you say Dan Alexander's on assignment, considering the Phillies game is going on right now, does that mean he's at Citizens Bank Park drinking? Is that what his on assignment is? Because coincidentally, the Phillies have a game right now, but just thought I'd mention that. So here's the thing. Again, Toronto lost the first 2 games. They lost yesterday. I had the Blue Jays and Chris Bassett in the first 5 yesterday, and I cashed that ticket. Toronto ends up losing the game. So now they're facing a home sweep against a division rival, which is a situation that I always like to play on. Kevin Gausman has struggled. I know. Look, and when you look at the numbers for this game, Steve, none of them really look appealing for Toronto. But it's one of those spots where it almost makes me want to say baseball, comes to life here, and everything that looks like it should go one way ends up going the other. Gausman has been better on the road than at home this year. He struggled a little bit. Even last year, his numbers against the Red Sox were not great, the splits as far as that's concerned. But he's their ace, so to speak, and he's the guy that they need to stop them on a day like today where they don't want to get swept at home. This is a Toronto team that, when it comes to scoring runs, they seem to come in bunches. They got shut down the first 2 games of this series, and now they come back. I think today we get a lot of runs against a pitcher in Bryan Bello, who is not having a great year by any stretch of the imagination. He's got an ERA of 5, a whip of 1.4. He's given up 10 bombs on the year. Not to mention he's got 24 walks. And that's, one of those things I look at and I go, if you're going to put guys on, it's going to come around to eventually bite you in the backside. And I think we get that here. For Gausman, for all of his struggles, the bad starts that he's had have been sort of blow-up starts, but he hasn't been terrible overall. Again, 16 walks in just 75 innings to go along with 75 strikeouts. So it's really just the ERA that's out of what we're normally used to seeing from Gausman here. So I'm going to back Gausman at home and the Toronto Blue Jays against the Red Sox here for Toronto to get the win and avoid the sweep.
Back in the gas can. I mean, the gauze, man. You're back in the gauze, man. Yes. We'll see what happens here with your Toronto Red Sox. Wouldn't that be fantastic? The Boston Blue Jays. Boston Blue Jays has actually got a nice ring to it. I could endorse that. And they're northern. They probably get a few Blue Jays up there. Bryan Power. Joe Ranieri brings up the worst in many of us, but whenever you're on, I start picking on you. I channel my inner Joe Ranieri. I called you a pumpkin already. I was going to say, we don't need to get to your big game breakdown because people can go just watch Wager Talk today from 2 hours earlier. So let's just play that clip. Brian could have one more afternoon beverage, and then we'll get to the best bets. So, just in case they didn't tune in, and they might have thought, hey, look, it's press-free zone, so hopefully they did tune in. But just in case they didn't, we talked about my Washington Nationals, who have won, 8 out of 10 now. They lost last night. But the National League's Arizona Diamondbacks, the defending National League champs, below 500. You mentioned something, though, on the show, which I've been pointing out also, Brian, that Arizona has a positive run differential, so they should be slightly better. Technically, they should be a winning team. Do you agree? Is there upside still? I mean, why has this team been below the rate? I mean, Texas also, the 2 World Series teams have been underachieving. Are the Nationals for real, or are the Diamondbacks due to start playing better?
Yeah, Steve, I'll just go out. I'll apologize to you because this is going to sound familiar. I obviously talked about this game with you and Teddy on Wager Talk today. It's going to sound familiar to Zinno, too, because I broke it down on the morning wager with him, but I really just want to make sure anyone missed either of those 2 shows here on the YouTube channel, and they're watching now. It's Patrick Corbin Day in the nation's capital, and that means we fade the Nationals. Look, bottom line is this. Corbin stinks, okay? We all understand this. Over the last 5 seasons, we're talking about a guy 28-64, 5.85 ERA, 16 more losses than any other starter in baseball going back to 2021. Been the best play against pitcher in all of MLB during that stretch. Really profitable to fade him in the first 5 innings as a dog. Doing so, you'd be 56, 27, and 7. That's a 67% win rate the last 4 seasons. And true to form, guys, the Nats have lost Corbin's last 6 starts. Fastball velocity is at a career low. Strikeout rate is at a low watermark for his career. Corbin began his career in Arizona, okay? Since when he faces his former team, he's faced him 3 times, 10.80 ERA. He's actually faced him 4 times, but he's 0-3. So really, I just have nothing positive to say about the man. Maybe he's a nice guy. I don't know. But we're going to take Arizona first 5 here, minus half a run. That'll reduce the juice. I cashed the D-backs yesterday. They beat the Nats 5-0. Fott is the D-back starter today. He looked good last time out, allowed 1 run in 6 innings. He's gone 6 or more innings, 8 of his last 9 starts. He is clearly the better starter here. So I expect Arizona to have the lead after 5 innings tonight. And Steve, just to address what you said at the open, I will close by reiterating what I said on WagerTalk today. FanGraphs says the Nationals are going to have a bottom 3 run differential the rest of the way, 4th fewest number of wins. So they're a fade team for me. As for Arizona, yes, note the positive run differential. So they're a play-on team. Give me Arizona first 5, laying half the run.
Yeah, no, Bryan, I like where you're going with. You've got a team that's probably due to regress in the Nationals with a team that's due to play better in the D-backs. So I do think it was worthy of a mention once again here on the show. And, you ask yourself, why is Corbin still in the rotation after all these years? Well, the Nationals are not a good franchise right now, and they don't necessarily have anybody better to bring up from AAA Rochester. In fact, I'm looking at their stats right here. They've got 4 guys that have started double-digit games, 12 or more starts at Rochester this year, and not very good numbers. The opponent batting averages are all over 260 against all 4 of those guys. DJ Hertz has 9 starts, a 177 opponent's average, but still a very mediocre 1.242 whip. So they really don't have much else. So I do think there's a reason Corbin's still in the rotation, and we still get to fade him here in the near future. Brian Power, BP, taking the Diamondbacks for his big game breakdown. Once again, if you're watching us live on YouTube, here our regular channel, WagerTalk TV, I will be following the live chat here. Our producer, Joe Ranieri, checking out shorts and also Instagram. Joe lives on Instagram. Don't let him fool you. He loves the comments on Instagram Live. And Johnny Jumpman, one of our loyal viewers who chimes in a lot of my videos as well, said he decided to summer day drink on the gram today. So if you are day drinking on the gram, let us know your beverage of choice. And away from Corbin, the Nats have been playing decent ball, but the D-backs have been hitting, though. Offense has been turning things around, says Johnny Jumpman, one of our loyal viewers on WagerTalk TV. And, Mark, we'll get to some best bets at the end of the show. You and Bryan actually both have first 5 plays, first 5 innings. So those of you that like first 5-inning wagers, we will get to those. But I got to ask you guys about a game I just did a solo video for. Bettor's dilemma here. You've got the worst team in baseball, the White Sox, at basically a pick-em price. But then on the other side, you've got maybe the best young pitcher in baseball right now, Crochet, at a plus money price at plus 105. So, Mark, I'll start with you. White Sox 6-2 their last 8, by the way, with Crochet on the mound. So they have been a profitable play. What do you do with this game? Chicago, the worst team in baseball, but one of the best pitchers in baseball. Any opinion on this one tonight? Houston at Chicago.
Yeah, certainly lean Houston. I mean, you look at Hunter Brown for what he's been for the past month plus. I mean, he's only given up 5 earned runs in his last 5 starts. That's over 31 innings. So he's been very, very good. In fact, he hasn't given up a run in each of his last 2 starts. So despite the fact that you see these numbers of a 5 ERA and a 1.43 whip, what he's done in the last month has been really good. So he's starting to turn a corner here. The other thing that sold me on the Astros here is Crochet's best weapon is the strikeout. Well, the Astros have the lowest K rate against lefties this entire season. So if you're going to neutralize his best weapon, then you're going to start to put some guys on base, and that should benefit the Houston Astros here. And furthermore, I just don't think that Chicago is a team that I would bet on to win 2 in a row and back-to-back. By the way, they won a game last night where they got 2 hits. 2. So that's a bad lineup. And so as good as Crochet can be, I don't think that Houston has to be all that great to go out and win this game. And, oh, by the way, unless you plan on throwing Crochet all 9 innings, you get to get into that White Sox bullpen, which is, what's the word for it? Bad. 4th highest ERA in all of Major League Baseball, and the 2nd highest WHIP in all of Major League Baseball as far as bullpens are concerned. So I definitely lean Houston here.
Yeah, Bryan, some great points. And once again, I've got a standalone video, so I recommend people after the show check that out here on WagerTalk TV for my take. But one of the things I asked in that video, I always like to get comments. And by the way, live viewers comment on this as well. There's a lot of talk in Chicago right now, guys. Do we trade Crochet? And you would think on the surface that sounds insane that you would trade a 24-year-old ace. But the more I've started thinking about this, I'm kind of torn. This is a guy that was a relief pitcher until this season. He has already pitched more innings this year than he's ever pitched in a season, and we're not even halfway through. So you talk about sell high, buy low, sell high. If you could get 2 or 3 prospects for a guy that's at his peak right now that maybe could regress at some point, it's an interesting discussion. So viewers, let us know if you're watching the replay on the comments below. Do we trade Crochet? Bryan, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I was just going to say, the White Sox aren't going to be good for a long time, right? So even with this ace, I know he's got the majority wins, but I mean, what's the point? I mean, if you can get a big haul for a couple years down the line, I mean, yeah, it's nice that you can win maybe once every 5 days, but what's that going to get you? I mean, even mediocrity is a waste of time in baseball.
If you could be the worst team in baseball,
what's your take on this? Because I'm feeling the same way. Yeah.
If you could be the worst team in baseball with Crochet, you could be the worst team in baseball without him. I mean, I mean, what are we actually saving here? You know, like if
my take too, guys, is that I think him being a reliever and him never going more than this already at like 80 some innings, these are the kind of guys you could see all of a sudden just disappear, right? You know, the next year or two, like he can't pitch farther into the season, Bryan.
Yeah, and to that point, what Mark said, what you just said, Steve, Crochet has only gone more than 6 innings in a start once, and it was his last start. So when you're playing the White Sox, you have to understand a third of the game, Crochet's probably not going to be a part of it. And yesterday, why were they able to win? Mark mentioned the White Sox terrible bullpen. Well, they got a big break because the bullpen only had to record 1 out yesterday. That's very rare that the bullpen has to do that little work for the White Sox. Mark can attest to this because I talked about it in Hunter Brown's last start. Remember, he was against Tariq Skubal, Detroit's one of the top Cy Young candidates in the American League. And it was kind of an even money situation, and Brown outdueled Skubal in that start. So he's capable of going toe-to-toe with the best pitchers. And yeah, I agree with you, Steve, that, honestly, I mean, and Mark said it best. If the White Sox are one of the worst teams in baseball with Crochet, why not be one of the worst? Why not be the worst team in baseball without him? Get a haul for the future, because this team is really years, and I do stress years, away from being any kind of serious playoff contender. Very bad baseball team. Will probably lose 110 games with or without shutting down Crochet this year.
Yeah, I mean, they were a favorite just a couple years ago in the Central. They vastly underachieved. They were an aging club, so you're right. They're not going to turn the corner. Richard Lockhart saying he's got White Sox pitcher over K's. Now, that's not a terrible bet, obviously. He leads the league right now. He's tied for the most strikeouts in baseball. But as Mark said, excellent point, Mark. I wish I'd mentioned in my video that the Astros' lowest K percentage, you said, against lefties this season. That's a pretty remarkable stat. It's strength against strength. Real quick, guys, we got about 3 minutes till this game starts. So I'll start with you, Mark, and then get your take, Bryan. Live viewers also want to know about this 2:20 Eastern start for the other Chicago team, the Cubs. Hendricks against Miller, Mark. Any take on this at a pick-em price?
I mean, I'm not going to back Kyle Hendricks to do anything, especially when it comes to throwing a baseball over a plate. The guy's 0-4 with an 8.2 ERA and a 1.7. Like, this is the kind of game where you look at Hendricks and look at his earned runs prop and just kind of take the over, right? I know it's the Giants lineup and they're not great, but, like, I don't know. I mean, if you're getting Kyle Hendricks over 2.5 earned runs, like, just play that, because there's no reason to do anything else. Like, you have a questionable starter for the Giants. The Cubs can go one game where they score 8 runs, the next game they score 1. Like, they're just an inconsistent team right now that I don't really trust. So I would just look to play some way against Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah, and Bryan, I've always said the best job is a weatherman, because they can be right 50% of the time and nobody complains. Whereas if we're right 50% of the time, we get hammered. But this is a pretty easy weatherman job right here, right? I see a total of 11. I kind of know where the wind is blowing in Wrigley, so that run prop would make some sense.
Yeah, the only thing is the Cubs offense, if you like the over for the game, they're 4-10 against left-handed starters this year. There was a game, was it on Sunday, that had an 11-run total against St. Louis, and it stayed way under. So I would exercise caution about betting the full game over. I would agree. How could you not agree with what Mark said about Hendricks? This is interesting, guys. Second day in a row that the Cubs have a starter with no wins on the season that started at least 7 games. Yesterday, it was Justin Steele. Mark and I talked about this on the morning wager. We thought it was a great value, 2-1 odds for him to get a win. He was a third of an inning away from doing so, but Steele has good peripherals. Hendricks does not. I don't know what this says for the Cubs rotation, not that you're trotting out starters in back-to-back days that have a combined 0 wins on the year in 16 starts. So the Cubs offense is also pretty bad. Maybe Giants team total over, or, like Mark said, the earned runs prop for Hendricks might be a look as well. I don't really like the Giants in general. That's another kind of word of caution, I guess. I think they're an overachiever, similar to Washington in the National League.
Yeah, the wind is 12 miles an hour last I checked, blowing out dead center. So just 12 miles an hour. That does make a difference in Wrigley. But you've got a terrible offensive team that, by the way, has gone under 10 of their last 11 games. And the total is 11, like the highest of the season. So it's going to take some runs to get it up and over there. We're asking a lot maybe for Chicago, even with the wind blowing out. Guys, let's talk about maybe the biggest game of the night in the American League. Yankees, Orioles, the 2 best teams in the American League. I think the 2 teams to beat in the American League, 2 best run differentials. And then add to the intrigue tonight, we've got Garrett Cole returning from injury. He's made a couple minor league starts. He looked really good at AA in his first 2 starts. Now stepping up in class, to say the least, so at home against the Orioles. Mark, I'll throw it back to you. What is your take on this game? How do you handicap games like this with a pitcher coming back? Do you look at those minor league stats as a wait-and-see approach? What do you think of Yankees-Orioles?
When it comes to an average pitcher, I'll invest a little bit more into what they did in their minor league starts, or sort of look back and usually just stay away. But when it's a pitcher at the level of Garrett Cole, the only thing you have to worry about is re-injury, right? Like, there's no reason to believe that Garrett Cole is going to come out and get bombed, because it's just not who he is. It's not the pitcher he's ever been. What you have to worry about is how far he's going to go. If he goes more than 4, I'd be shocked. He's probably only throwing 60 pitches, and that's it. So, you're going to get your best from him, and you're going to get 4 innings of quality baseball from him when you talk about what he's going to be able to do. But the Yankees bullpen is very good, so I think you can trust them going there. And they're going up against a young rookie in Cade Povich, who, there's a sense of him walking into Yankee Stadium, even though it's not the old Yankee Stadium, but he's walking into Yankee Stadium, and that's the New York Yankees and the pinstripes on the other side. He could be overwhelmed and a little, a little bit caught up in the moment. Judge is day-to-day. I don't think he's going to play tonight. There are some rumors that he is going to play tonight. That's certainly going to hurt the Yankees' offensive chances, but there is still a lot of firepower in this New York lineup. Strangely enough, though, Steve, the games that these 2 teams have played this year, I think now it's 4 of the 5 games they've played have gone under. So for 2 of the best offenses in baseball, they haven't been scoring a ton of runs. But, I think it's the Yankees at home. They certainly are better there. The Orioles may be getting a little bit of a lesson in, I don't want to phrase it like this way, but because I think they're a really good team and I still believe they can win the East, but it's like big boy baseball. The Orioles can beat up on all the bad teams, but they have to prove a little bit still that they can climb to the top of the mountain against a team like the Yankees that's as good as they are this year. So I lean Yankees here, but you might be wiser to go with the first 5 play with New York, knowing Cole will probably at least get through 4 and keep you in business.
Yeah, in the live chat, Sandoval 34 says, "Give me the O's. Isn't this the best spot for his first start off a long layoff?" One thing I'll point out, Bryan, is that, Mark mentioned the strikeouts. Garrett Cole made the 2 AA starts that I referenced, gave up 4 hits, 8 innings, did give up a homer, but then he made 1 AAA start before getting called up, 10 strikeouts in just over 4 innings pitched. So 10 of the 13 outs were strikeouts at AAA. So, I do read something into that. It tells me that he's healthy. And I agree with Mark. He probably won't go long. But, his A game is on, it looks like. For 10 strikeouts out of 13 outs in AAA is pretty impressive.
Yeah, but Baltimore, obviously, a much better lineup than a minor league lineup. There's no doubt about that. Mark talked about it, and you just mentioned it again. Good point that Cole's not going to go very long. But the Yankees' bullpen is very good. So I think, the Orioles didn't score until the 9th inning. I think they had a 2-run homer in the 9th last night was their only runs. So They did a great job at run suppression last night, the Yankees did. And for the year, they're only giving up 3.2 runs per game at home. Now, Baltimore only gives up 3.4 runs per game on the road. You look at the WagerTalk.com odds screen here. Clearly, bettors think that this total opened too high, and I would concur with that. But the sort of X factor, uncertainty, fly in the ointment, if you will, ironically enough, is not Cole making his first start of the year. It's the other guy, Povich, because what happened, like Mark kind of alluded to, what if he gets bombed? That could be what totally ruins the under. Now, Judge, I would wait for lineups. Maybe that's why we're seeing this total move the way it is. Maybe we're just all convinced. Maybe people know Judge isn't going to play. The Yankees, they finished with just 4 runs last night, just 6 hits. So it would be under or pass for me. But if you're betting the under now, you're not getting the best of the number. So I even see some shops as low as 7.5 now. So that's just something to notice, I think, and monitor. Keep an eye out on Judge's status. I think that looms large.
Steve, yeah, Eric DeLong chiming in, Mark, that he hasn't seen anything on Judge one way or the other.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you probably won't know till closer to game time. And BP is right. You have to kind of wait to see how this thing goes. But, there is a sense, and I would assume that some of this money coming down is a lot of the uncertainty and the things that we don't, again, Cole, Judge not playing. Like, these are things that you would normally look to spot situationally play against the Yankees. But again, baseball's quirky like that. Like, some of those narratives sort of, I don't know if you want to let infiltrate your mind here. I mean, the Yankees have been winning with a lot more than Garrett Cole this year. They've found other ways to win, and they're a lineup from top to bottom that scores. I get they haven't scored that much against the Orioles, but again, like I said, 4 of these 5 games have gone under. The Orioles haven't scored much against the Yankees. So, I still think that the Yankees are probably the side I would go with, as much as it looks like an opportune time to go bet on Baltimore.
And by the way, we break down all these games, 162 games for every team and, every individual pitching matchup. But if you could just take a big picture forest from the trees approach at the beginning of the season and get it right, you can make a lot of money. Baltimore and the Yankees, if you just blindly played on them both this year, you're up almost 30 units of profit in all games. If you've just blindly played against the White Sox and Astros in that other game we talked about, you're up almost 40 units this year. That's like 70 units right there. Just talking about 4 teams if you get them right or wrong.
Four bets every night and you're golden.
But I mean, in the hindsight markets like Orioles, Yankees, we kind of knew they were going to be good, right? And White Sox kind of knew they were going to be bad. The Astros, I think, were obviously a little bit of the outlier there. But it shows, once again, maybe we overthink this stuff. The Orioles, by the way, have won 8 of their last 11. They've been the most profitable team in baseball for 2.5 years now. Guys, a lot of
to
great
Mark's
chat.
point, one last thing on Mark's point about Baltimore not being able to score against Yankees pitching this year. In all 5 meetings, they have scored 2 runs or less. So that is, again, I think the X factor is the Yankees offense against Povich, whether or not this game, because Baltimore just has not proven that they can score against this Yankees staff, no matter who's starting, and the great bullpen.
Yeah, City by the Bay has that great stat you saw on the screen earlier. He says that, Garrett Cole's got a 2.6 ERA, 93 strikeouts, 12 appearances. So he's done pretty well against the Orioles. But then again, the Orioles have been a little bit stronger the last several years. So we'd have to see how many of those starts have been in the last couple of seasons. Obviously, none of them this year, as Garrett Cole is in the lineup for the first time tonight. And Titan CT, one of our loyal viewers as well, he says he likes the Red Sox and Mariners, some nice dogs. So let's look at that game. We haven't talked about it yet. At 6:40 Eastern, the American League. Seattle is a dog against the Cleveland Guardians. I mentioned how the Yankees have been a great moneymaker. Cleveland, the second most profitable team in the American League behind the Yankees, ahead of the Orioles actually this year. And they've been getting it done with a fantastic bullpen. Now getting a little pricey, though, almost $1.50 favorite. Seattle, meanwhile, is a good-sized dog here. They're having a fantastic season as well. 2 good teams, 2 playoff caliber teams. Mark, I'll start with you. What are you doing with this game, Seattle at Cleveland tonight on Wednesday?
A moment ago when you said the biggest game of the night, I honestly thought you were referencing this one because this game is excellent. And it file it under the something's got to give category because when Tanner Beebe starts for the Indians, oh my God, did I just say that? The Guardians, Major
it's okay,
League
man.
Indians.
It's all right.
I know.
I'm with you.
When Tanner Beebe starts for the Guardians, they give him 5.4 runs of support. In his 14 starts, the Guardians are 11-3. Now, Brian Power knows how much I love Brian. Woo! When Brian Woo starts for the Seattle Mariners, they score 5.8 runs per game, and they haven't lost a single one of his starts yet this year. They're 6-0. And, oh, by the way, Brian Woo has got an ERA of 1.07. So this is like the marquee game of the night, if you ask me, when you look at this whole thing. And you have to kind of break it down, too. Like, I generally don't trust Seattle's lineup. I do trust the Guardians lineup, especially at home. And when you look at the bullpens for both of these teams, both pretty excellent. You have to consider it a wash. So I would kind of approach this from a first five perspective, because I think the team that cracks first and gets a lead is probably the team that's going to hold on to the lead. And if I believe that Cleveland is as good at home as they've been all year long, and you have to kind of just look at it generally from a perspective of, like, don't get me wrong. Again, I love Bryan Wu, but is he going to maintain this level of giving up one run or less in 4 or 5 of his 6 starts this year? That's a big ask there, Steve Merrill. Like, that's hard to continue to do. At some point in time, he's going to get touched up. So, and the worst outing he had this year was against the Nationals, your Nationals, on the road, where he gave up 3 runs in 6 innings. Everything else has been better than a quality start. So, the strikeout rate for Wu is good, but it's not like, over the top like it was last year. Still, all that in, I slightly lean Guardians here just because they're at home, but I'd only play it first 5.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, you talk about big picture handicapping techniques. I mean, blindly playing on quality teams as underdogs is probably good in all sports long term. And we do have several of them tonight. The chat's talking about the Orioles plus money. We've got Seattle plus money here. What's your take on this game, Seattle, Cleveland? This, along with that Orioles-Yankees game, I do think are the 2 best games of the night.
Yeah, probably the 4 best teams collectively in the American League. You talk big picture. Well, I liked Cleveland at the opening price, to be honest with you, Steve. They're 21-9 at home. They're 16-8 off a loss this season. They have not lost 4 in a row at any point this season. This is only their second 3-game losing streak of the entire year. So the spot kind of screams Guardians. I don't know if that's why we've seen the price bet up. Also, Seattle, like Cleveland, is better at home than on the road. Now, Seattle had a great start yesterday. Anyone who follows the Guardians knows Tristan McKenzie is a major problem in this rotation. The team had been winning for him, kind of bailing him out, but his numbers stink. So I wasn't surprised to see him get blown up. But yeah, Bybee, he's been great. The team's 11-3 with him on the mound. This has just kind of gone on. I know it's a weak answer that nobody wants to hear, guys, but this number's just gotten too crazy for me. I liked Cleveland at the opening price. I'm kind of chickening out at the current price because, like you said, Steve, the Mariners are a good team, and I don't want to lay this kind of price against them in what sort of still feels like a pick'em game with a slight edge to Cleveland at home. I just don't want to lay more than 140 on the Guardians here. If you got them early in the day and you got closing line value, I'd say get out with your bad self. You should feel okay, but I wouldn't play it at the current price anymore.
Johnny Jumpman in the chat is saying, Bryan Wu for me. Johnny Jumpman, that is. Bryan Wu for Johnny Jumpman. Mariners run line and run line. Also, consumed by cannabis. A great handle there. Says Garrett Cole's under-earned runs are a concern because of the home run possibility of the Orioles in that matchup. Obviously, the Orioles are a great home run team. But also they do strike out a bit. That's why I pointed out he had 10 strikeouts with just over 4 innings in that AAA start last week. So that Cole matchup against the O's will be great as well. Woo! Against the Guardians. Cleveland Indians. They're still Brian Powers, Cleveland Indians. By the way, I mentioned Washington Redskins on the Wager Talk Today episode. We talked about Joe Gibbs because Teddy Covers was breaking down Michigan. And Teddy had a very interesting take on the Michigan season total wins is 9.5, as is Alabama. So I know we're talking baseball, but if you want some college football advanced metrics and talk, check out Wager Talk Today. And oh yeah, Brian Power was on as well, talk a little bit of soccer for tomorrow, for Thursday. So you have plenty of time to check out a free Euro play as well. Yet another reason to click subscribe and hit that bell for instant alerts, including the free play videos. I did 2 of them tonight, and those are here on Wager Talk TV as well in Major League Baseball. All right, guys, we're going to start to wrap things up. Viewers, if you have any more questions or comments or concerns, complaints, let us know. In the meantime, we're going to get a couple best bets going here. And I'll start with you, Mark. Let's talk Dodgers and Rockies. Rockies always a much better home team. Dodgers, though, were considered by far the best team coming in this season. Devastating loss to Mookie Betts, broken left hand the other day. But the Dodgers are in Colorado once again in the thin air and altitude, continuing this series. What are you doing with this? I have a feeling you're looking at a first 5 angle here for a best bet.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to get involved in too many games at Coors Field just because of the volatility, right? Like, it's just hard to figure out. But I feel like we're getting a little bit of value here on the first half total, which is set at 5 for a game that's at 10.5. And, typically on 8.5 games, right, it's 4.5 in the first 5. You get that half run over. So we're a half run under, and it kind of puts us in a favorable spot in case we need to push. But this is more for me about fading Ryan Feltner, the starter for the Rockies. He's 1-6 with a 5.71 ERA and a 1.45 WHIP. But more importantly, he's allowed at least 4 runs or more in 4 of his last 5 starts and in 9 of 14 starts this season. So I know everybody looks at the Dodgers now without Mookie Betts and is like, oh, maybe we should wait. Guys, the rest of the lineup is still potent. It's the same thing with the Yankees. I know Judge is everything to them, but that lineup from top to bottom is there's no easy outs across the board. So this is still a Dodgers lineup that you can trust a ton here against a pitcher like Feltner and feel pretty confident that, it's going to work out in your favor. On the flip side, Bobby Miller is making his first start off the IL. He only made 3 starts back in the beginning of the year. Both of his road starts were bad. He didn't do well in either one of his road starts this year. And I almost don't mind fading him coming off the IL as opposed to backing him because, one, he might not pitch the entire time. That's number one. And number 2, I look at it and I go, well, if he's not on, Colorado's going to be able to score because Colorado can score at home. And I know it's really unconventional to sort of leave Colorado's bullpen out of this because they are the worst bullpen in baseball, but the Dodgers have a really good bullpen. And so once they get into it, guess what? I kind of feel like I'm all depending on one team to do all of the scoring. If I was going to take a full game over, and you guys know this, I say it all the time, if they ain't scoring early, they ain't scoring late. If they don't get to 5, they're probably in the first 5 innings. Guess what? They're probably not getting to 11 for this game, especially with the Dodgers bullpen having a good amount of shutdown quality here. So I'll play the first 5 over, trust the Dodgers bats to do most of the heavy lifting. Certainly, I feel like if Colorado could push 2 runs across against Miller, that we should at least get a push out of this thing here. If not, go over this number of 5 in the first 5 innings.
It's Dodgers and Colorado Rockies. First half over the total. And Dodgers have obviously been hitting the ball pretty good without Mookie the last 2 nights. 20 runs on 23 hits. They have been efficient to say the least, but they've also left 16 guys on base. So they have been taking advantage of that thin air and altitude in Coors Field. Brian, before we get to your best bet, we're going to look at a late game as well for you here in just a moment. I didn't even think about this as we were talking about Giants-Cubs, which just started about 15 minutes ago. Willie Mays, of course, passed away at the age of 93 yesterday. So that'll be an incredibly emotional game for 2 of his teams playing each other. And another one of our great viewers here in the chat, Ruzin, was saying that it's the inverse. 39 is the reflection of 93. Cubs have 39 losses, and I believe if the Giants lose today, they get to 39 losses. So a little interesting there. And, of course, godfather of Barry Bonds, the great Willie Mays. So that Giants and Cubs game have some extra meaning. Brian, let's look at a late game, though, from you here for a free play tonight.
Steve, you're going to ignore that comment.
I'm not looking at the screen.
The comments say, I'll tell you what,
Mark, laughing at me. I was like, I'm talking about Willie Mays passing away, and this is funny. I was like, what? No, I'm looking at 7
I don't
screens
laugh.
Here, but
no, I'll tell you what, Mark Zinno talks about the Colorado Rockies and everybody. Yeah, I'll tell you what, man, everybody starts lighting it up right there.
Well, it's funny because I wanted to mention the Willie Mays thing, and I figured we got to be serious about the guy passing away. But when I was throwing to Brian and I said, speaking of thin air and altitude, I was like, there's so many great lines I could go with here on Brian.
Now, wait a minute here.
He's smoking on the YouTube. LOL. It is summertime. By the way, summer's officially starts tomorrow, I believe. It's the longest day of the year, June 20th. And then the NHL playoffs continue on Friday. So the Canadians, once again, have gotten it completely wrong with this hockey thing going into summer. They'd smoke and wake and bake. Richard Lockhart in the house with all this stuff, Brian.
Before I get to my best bet, Steve, you talk about Canadians. Obviously, our favorite Canadian, the Prez, was not on WagerTalk today. We didn't talk about the surging Mets today against the Rangers. Okay, and there's all this talk about Grimace, and I wanted to ask Zinno, if Prez was. If Prez was here, Zinno, what would he have to say about Grimace in the New York Mets? What do you think he would have to say?
First of all, Mark, do you think Canadians know who Grimace is? Do they have that north of the border in the Canadian McDonald's?
I don't know if they have mascots north of the border. I think it's only a Maple Leaf.
They just have Mounties.
Yeah, I don't know what mascot throws out a first pitch, but his arms can't get over his head. So I don't know if he threw a strike. Whatever he's done for the Mets, it's working. And so we want to take a moment here. Maybe other teams can get a grimace. Maybe we can find some Canadian team. Maybe the Edmonton Oilers need a grimace to come all the way back from 3-0 and win the Stanley Cup. You guys tell me. I don't know.
Brian Power, I didn't know Grimace was still a thing since the 1970s, but I do remember they had those purple milkshakes a couple years ago. So I think that's where the younger generation started to know Grimace. They had the purple milkshakes. Yeah. But I think Rocky and Bullwinkle, maybe they could throw out a pitch for the Edmonton Oilers or drop the first puck, whatever they do there for hockey to get things going. I will say this, speaking of Canadians, England, the trip to England, actually, I think, Mark, is what did it for the Mets. We talked about it cooling the Phillies off. What I think I missed along the way was it's like the bye week in the NFL. I've always said the bye week is a momentum shifter. If you're red hot, you don't need it. If you're struggling, the bye week's a good thing. I think that trip maybe regrouped the Mets, and they also had a little dissension in the clubhouse, which sometimes can spark you. Yeah, don't look now. They've won 7 straight and 7-1 since returning from England. They lost that first game back, and they've won 7 straight since. So we'll see what the Mets do at Texas tonight on Wednesday. Brian, one of the later games you're going to talk about here is actually the Angels game. It's Milwaukee and the LA Angels. Milwaukee's about $1.80 full game favorite, but you're going to take a look at the first 5 here. What are you doing with Milwaukee and the LA Angels?
Yeah, maybe the Hamburglar could throw out the first pitch here. This is my second first
he could
5
steal
look.
The ball and hide it.
Yeah, there we go. Gallagher. I think the Hamburglar got canceled. Poor guy. Anyway, this is my second first 5 look on the run line of the show. Oh, by the way, don't miss on my page right now my first 5% play of the Major League Baseball season. It's actually my first 5% play in MLB in nearly 10 months, going back to August of last year. We're locked and loaded. It is a half off Wednesday, like Steve said, so just 50% off. That is how I hope to be looking after the 5% play is over tonight on the screen. What a graphics team we've got here on Wager Talk today. Anyway, I like the pitching matchup of Peralta versus Anderson from Milwaukee's perspective. I know Peralta has not pitched all that well recently, but he should bounce back here against an Angels lineup, guys, that got only 3 runners to second base yesterday against Myers, who started for the Brew Crew. Anderson, meanwhile, is one of my top candidates to fade the rest of the 2024 season. Expected ERA sits way higher than his actual ERA. And over his last 4 starts, Anderson actually has more walks, 15, than he does strikeouts, 14, which is a real problem against the Milwaukee lineup that is 4th in all of baseball against walk rate. So whether it's the free passes, whether it's hits, I think Milwaukee is going to find a way to get guys on base tonight. I know yesterday was the first time in 12 days that the Brewers scored 5 or more runs, but this is a team that can also win when they don't score a lot of runs. They're 7-4 their last 11 games overall. They don't give up a ton. And the Angels, doesn't matter if they're from California, from Anaheim, from Los Angeles, anywhere in Orange County, they are just awful at home. 12-24, where they're being outscored by 1.7 runs per game. They're one of the worst defensive teams in baseball. It's always important to note about defense. I just mentioned walks could be a key for the Brew Crew. Well, maybe an error or 2 give us a couple runs on the Brewers early. Regardless of how they get across the plate, I expect the visitors to have a lead after 5 innings tonight. Milwaukee, first 5, minus half a run is my best bet for the show. And don't miss that 5% play on my page right now, wt.buzz/BP.
And it's half price because it is half price Wednesday at wagertalk.com. I saw a graphic pop. I saw a cartoon bubble. What did it say? What did it say? There it is. 5%
there we
best
go.
bet available. Day drinking.
I'll tell you what, Zinno. Who benches more, do you think? Me or you right there? I think if there was any doubt in the people's mind, I think that graphic made it real clear who dominates on the bench press. Steve, I'm sure you can also bench more than me for the record.
I just know as you bench that bottle, it gets lighter on every rep because you're taking a swig every time it comes down next level. So that's the way to do it. As you fatigue, you get the weights lighter. It's a good burnout.
I think I sent Joe Ranieri that picture. And by the way, let this be a lesson. Never send Joe Ranieri any photos of yourself that could be compromised in any way. That was after a 5% win with Michigan over Alabama on New Year's Day. I believe I sent that picture to him when he asked how it was going. So There you have it. 5%
Doesn't matter. If you send pictures to him or not, he's going to find something for you. So it'll work
he
either way.
He may have hacked into my phone. Maybe I didn't even send it to him. I don't know what's going on.
All I know is his video is much worse than pictures.
All I know, guys, is that we covered every game that remains tonight, all 10 games except for 2. So we might as well finish it off. I'm not going to ask you about Royals Athletics because that's actually the free play on my page for Wednesday night. So people can go to my page right now, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. And as we've been saying, 2 for 1, it's half price, but I've also got a 2 for 1 package, which is half price. So that's a great deal. Oh, by the way, 8 straight winners the last 6 nights, 8-0 sweep, 14-3 the last 17 days. I didn't even mention that yesterday on the show, guys. I buried the lead, but red hot right now. Basketball's done, but baseball's been red hot as well. Great deal, half price Wednesday, but how about free Wednesday for everybody at Wager Talk? Because if you buy July, you get the rest of June for free. That is 12 more days and nights. Now, made this offer 2 days ago. I've gone 4-0 since, so shame on you for waiting, but you still have 12 more days and nights of June for free when you buy July. So, yes, the half price is great. Get Bryan's 5%, get Mark's strong best bets tonight, get my 2 for 1 special for half price, or get it for free when you buy July now. Why wait? WagerTalk.com. Mark Zinno, Bryan Power, and myself, Steve Merrill, including a bonus free play on the A's and Royals game. So get that on my page right now. And guys, on the way out, let's do the one other game, Rays and Twins, Bradley and Ryan on the mound. I'll start with you, Mark. We did have a question about this one. Daryl Turner says, does anybody trust the Mets and Twins parlay? I think we all said we wouldn't be looking to fade the red-hot Grimace Mets right now, but what are your thoughts on the Twins as part of that parlay?
I enjoy fading Taj Bradley. I don't think he's very good at all. And you look at Joe Ryan, I mean, you know, the numbers and the record don't match up, right? I mean, he's just 5-5, but he's got a 0.94 whip. And his 3.24 ERA really is a result of kind of a mediocre start and a mediocre April where he gave up at least 2 earned runs or 3 runs rather in every start that he made that month. But he's sort of bounced back over the course of the last couple of starts. He had a bad start in Houston back at the beginning of June, but for the most part, he's been really solid. So I lean on the Twins here. Just know every time you take the Twins, your stomach is going to be in knot because that lineup just stretches without being able to hit a baseball. So it's always a difficult spot when you're backing Minnesota because they don't score. But the Rays are not a good baseball team. Their record and their numbers are better than, or I should say, their records are better than their numbers suggest.
You know, Bryan, you mentioned fielding, and it does kind of get overshadowed in the big leagues, so they make it look so easy. But as a coach of many 12-under baseball teams the last several years, I can tell you how bad fielding can get at times when it's 90 degrees out there. And that's why I like walks and hits, innings pitched that Mark just mentioned. ERA is okay, but walks, hits, innings pitched is basically guys you're putting on base. Now, obviously, good fielding might stop and hit or two. But, yeah, Ryan's is off the chart. 0.94 is about as good as anyone in baseball this year. But Bradley's pretty good too. 1.1 whip. So 2 good pitchers, 2 inconsistent offenses. Total open date down to 7.5 under 20. What am I missing here? I mean, the under to me might look like the play.
Yeah, I concur. You know, I was kind of thinking, do we do Twins first 5? Because, you know, I don't like to play minus 160. And if you play first 5, lay half a run, it's only minus 110 on the Twins. But it scares me to do that because, like Mark said, the Twins offense can go stretches without scoring. And if you're only giving them 5 runs to put some runs on the board, that may not be enough to get the 1-run lead that you need. I absolutely echo what Mark said about Tampa Bay. Big picture, though. This team is not good. They have the 6th worst run differential in all of baseball. They are extremely, extremely fortunate to be 5 games within 500. I believe they have the biggest gap in all of baseball between actual and Pythagorean wins. I think it's +6 actual versus expected wins. For them right now, they have the run differential of a 28-win team. They are 34-39. So big picture, we've been talking about individual games and big picture on the show. Tampa Bay is a team that I'm just generally looking to fade and not back. They did lose by 1 run last night. 1-run wins have kind of been how the Rays have stayed competitive. I think they were 13-5 going into last night, 1-run games. So I would find a creative way to get on the Twins here, whether it's parlaying it, whether it's laying the half run in the first 5, or if you're juice tolerant, want to lay the price, go ahead, is what I would say, because the Twins are a much better baseball team than the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, Brian, we talk about this in all sports. Teams that have been very good for a while, when they get bad, all of a sudden the markets don't correct. Do you know the Rays are 9-21 this year against winning teams? There's only one team in the American League that has less than 9 wins, and that's actually surprisingly the Texas Rangers are 8-16 against winning teams. Even the Oakland A's have 10 wins. The White Sox have 11 wins against winning teams. How crazy is that? And the Rays are
Well, when you said
9-21.
one team, I was like, when you said
Oh
one
yeah,
team, I
you
was
would
like,
have said A's or White Sox, right?
It's
It's neither. It's
yeah.
it's the defending World Series champs. Now, obviously, some have played more than others. The White Sox, by the way, have played 47 games against above 500 opponents, and they're 11-36. The Rangers have played only 24. So that's another reason maybe there's some upside with the White Sox. They're going to win 40-some games still this year, despite they're just 20-54. So big picture takeaway on several teams right there as well. But we covered every night game, all 10 of them. So give the video a thumbs up, a like, the show a thumbs up, a like. Comment below in the replay. Do you trade Crochet? That was the question of the day here for the White Sox. Or do you keep them? Also, what's your day drink of choice, your beverage of choice? And what was in that giant bottle that Bryan Power is bench pressing above his head? That would actually be a shoulder press, but you get the point. Mark Zinno, Bryan Power, I'm Steve Merrill. Okay. The more I see that, I'm not so sure he's not trying to keep it above his head or keep it from falling. I'm not sure there was ever even a press involved there, but that's to be decided later. Comment below and let us know, because this is a wrap. The live chat is closed. It must be on the post-game chat now. And Grimace, the Grimace factor, is it real for the Mets? That's another great question. Comment below. Are the Mets for real? And is the Hamburglar politically correct? I want to get your thoughts on all these things here on WagerTalk TV. By the way, click subscribe and click the bell as well so you never miss a show when it goes live. First pitch in the next week or so, we'll be moving to 11 a.m. Eastern time live. So make sure you click that bell for instant alerts. We will be early tomorrow on Thursday, so extra day drinking can begin. There are only 2 night games, a lot of day games tomorrow, so check the early show. But I will be doing a standalone video tomorrow for the Giants and Cardinals. And who cares? Well, that's the Field of Dreams game tomorrow night, Thursday on Fox. But it's not in Iowa in the cornfields. It's actually in Alabama at Rickwood Park, the longest-standing professional baseball ballpark in the country. That'll be a fun solo video. So click subscribe and click the bell for an instant alert. Stay tuned here to WagerTalk TV. We're here for you 24/7, and there's great baseball content. More of it coming up next. Good luck tonight.